If your calendar feels like a public park and everyone is cutting across it, this is your reset. Because boundaries aren't walls, they're promises to your future. So decide them, communicate them, and keep them. That's how peace and performance can finally coexist, which is awesome, right? Over the last 10 weeks, we've talked about clarity, priorities, recovery, focus, and follow-through. But none of those survive very long without boundaries. You can have a clear vision and still get pulled off course. You can know your priorities and still give your best energy away. You can recover from disappointment, create a great plan, and build momentum just to watch it slowly disappear. Why? Because you never protected the time and space needed to sustain it. Boundaries are what make good decisions stick. Welcome to Goals and Grace with Certified High Performance Coach, Reverend Dr. Juliet Spencer, where we protect what matters, finish what we start, and do it with a joyful heart. Ready to lead with love, not depletion? Let's go. So let's get real. Most boundary problems aren't actually other people problems, as much as we would like to think they are. Rather, they're clarity and communication problems. You can't enforce what you don't define. And you can't expect what you haven't voiced. And you cannot protect what you haven't scheduled. So today we're going to talk about setting simple standards and creating boundaries that actually work, both at home and at work. Let's start with your non-negotiables. At home, that might be your sleep schedule, your morning routine, family connection time, or a rule about devices during meals. At work, it might be your prolific quality output block, limits on meetings, response times for emails, or guidelines around interruptions. Here's the truth. If it's not defined, it's optional. And optional things tend to get eaten alive by urgent things. Next, protect your prime block. Brendan Burchard calls it PQO, prolific quality output. It's focused time dedicated to creating something meaningful. Aim for at least one 50-minute block a day. But before the block begins, decide exactly what success will look like. So you're not going to put, I'm going to work on proposal. Instead, it needs to say something like, finish the first draft of the proposal. And you're not just working on presentation, you'll complete slides 1 through 10. And don't forget to put your phone in another room, close unnecessary tabs, put a sticky note beside your computer with the deliverables written on it. Then set a timer and go. When the timer ends, stand up, stretch, drink some water, and reset. That one boundary has changed careers, businesses, ministries, and relationships. Why? Because it creates momentum where distraction once lived. Interruption rules will save your sanity. At home, post your focused work blocks where your family can see them. Maybe create a signal so everybody understands. Something like when the office door is closed. Or maybe when mom has on her headphones. Or maybe it's a sign you put on the door. But whatever you choose, teach it kindly and consistently. New norms are not going to stick because we announce them once, no matter how much we wish that were true. They stick because we repeat them. At work, begin meetings by defining the boundary. You might try saying, I have 40 minutes available and I'd like us to decide X before we finish. And then you have established both the edge and the outcome. Schedule communication instead of living inside it. I've taught this principle for years because it's something I learned the hard way. If you don't schedule email and social media, they will schedule you. Instead of checking messages all day, designate 2 20-minute windows, one in the morning, one in the afternoon. And on heavy production days, give yourself permission to skip them. Your brain will thank you. Now, let's talk about saying no, because I know a lot of people, especially women, have a really hard time with this one. So here's a simple script. Thanks for thinking of me. I'm already committed to priorities scheduled weeks in advance, so I can't take this on without breaking those commitments. But I wish you the best. And that's it. It's calm, it's kind, and it's closed. No lengthy explanation required. And ladies, can we talk about over-explaining for a moment? Someone asks us to chair a committee, and instead of saying, "Thanks, but I can't commit to that right now," we deliver a 12-minute TED Talk explaining our schedule, our family obligations, our energy level, the phases of the moon, and 3 childhood experiences that contributed to our decision. Most people don't need or want the explanation. They are not conducting a cross-examination. A simple, respectful answer is enough. Remember, a boundary's not a court case, so you don't have to prove your innocence. Protect the relationship, not just your preferences. Boundaries aren't about winning against your spouse or your children or your coworkers. They're really about building trust. When people understand why you're protecting a block of time, they're far more likely to respect it. Maybe say something like this: I'm protecting this hour so I can finish this project by Friday. After that, I'll be fully available. You aren't pushing anyone away, you're just helping them understand the purpose behind the boundary. Let me give you a real-life example. Years ago, before I hired a coach, Jimmy and I would put dates on the calendar. We had such great intentions because, well, we genuinely wanted to spend time together. But week after week, something else seemed more urgent. Maybe it was a church member who called, or a meeting ran long, or an email that I just had to answer that day. And because husband is gracious, he rarely complained, which, unfortunately, made it easier to keep moving the boundary. But one day, I realized something that was not only uncomfortable, it was downright painful. I wasn't breaking appointments because I didn't value him or my marriage. I was doing it because, well, in part, I assumed he would understand. And because I allowed my anxiety about not finishing projects to take priority over my commitment. The people who loved me most were paying the price for my lack of boundaries. That's when I started treating those commitments differently. If it was on the calendar, it was real. And let me say too, I realize that those dates or those activities on my calendar were not necessarily sacred. But the relationships that they represented absolutely were. Boundaries aren't just about protecting productivity. Sometimes they're about protecting the people and the relationships that matter most before life slowly crowds them out. And while we're at it, energy boundaries matter just as much as time boundaries. Sleep's a boundary, movement is a boundary, rest is a boundary, and a mid-afternoon reset is definitely a boundary. If you continually burn down your physiology, there's no calendar system in the world that will save your mood, your focus, or your effectiveness. Protect the basics so you can show up patient at home and powerful at work. But let's talk just a minute about guilt. Because let's be honest, this is where so many of us get stuck. Guilt is often the signal that we've become overly identified with being endlessly available. That's what I discovered. Instead of measuring your worth by availability, measure it by reliability. You don't need to be reachable every moment. Who does? Unless you're the President of the United States or the Pope, you don't need to be reachable every moment. But you do need to be dependable with what you've promised. So as we close today, I hope you'll remember something. That every time you say yes to one thing, you're saying no to something else. And that's true whether you're intentional about it or not. When we fail to establish boundaries, we often think that we're just keeping our options open. But in reality, we're simply allowing other people and circumstances to make decisions for us. Decision fitness means choosing on purpose. It means deciding what deserves your time and your energy, your attention and your heart. Jesus modeled this beautifully. There were moments when he stopped before the person right in front of him. There were also moments when he walked away from the crowds, when he withdrew to pray or refused to be pulled away from his mission. He understood something many of us are still learning. You cannot say yes to every request and still fully live your life and your calling. You cannot fully accomplish your dreams and your goals if you aren't willing to say no. This week, I invite you to choose one boundary at home and one boundary at work and write them down, put them on the calendar, and communicate them kindly. Then keep the promise. Your future self will thank you because you're making room for what really matters. And I suspect your relationships will feel it as well. Little by little, you'll discover that peace isn't found by being available to everyone at any time. It's found by being faithful to what you said you would do, to what you've been asked to do and have agreed to do. It's by being faithful to what really matters and to the people who matter most to you. So until next time, my friend, protect what matters, finish what you start, and do it with a joyful heart. And may God bless you with goals and grace.